Right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give it about a minute so everyone's filtering in. Give everyone a second to, get logged in, grab your coffee, get comfy, get ready to learn because
Yeah.
you're gonna.
All right.
I hope you're all having a marvelous day. Before we get started, just a quick introduction. Let me introduce myself. I am Kelly Lauro, Senior Account Manager at C3 Works. And for over 30 years, we've helped business owners and professionals streamline their operations, their business development, and their finances. And I lead our team of executive assistants who specialize in project management and operations. And what we do is we optimize your back-end systems to ensure those operations and customer support run like a well-oiled machine, which we will get into in a lot of detail very soon. But before we get started, before we could bring Michelle and all that to the stage, I do want to hand it over to Anthony Arena, who, as you all know, is our most excellent NJBIA rep, to let us know all
Thank
the
you.
news and up and coming events we all have to look forward to. So go ahead, Anthony, enlighten
Thank you so
us.
much. Thank you so much, Kelly and Michelle. Great to see you both. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association's Business Growth Roundtable. We have a great session for you today, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone. For those of you new to NJBIA, we are one of the largest statewide associations here, representing about 25% of all New Jersey businesses. And keep in mind that we also help promote companies here in the state of New Jersey. And our motto is we are always business at the center. We also offer some other customer development opportunities, visibility through our magazine ads, our sponsorship events, both live and in virtual, like this one. We have our podcast show as well as our television show, Minding Your Business. And we also have money-saving discounts for your company, such as payroll opportunities with Prime Point, 401k solutions with BCG Securities. We have our healthcare with AMT, and we have our other 24-hour support that we have for HR services. So I'm one of the senior executives here in sponsorship sales at NJBIA. If you need anything, I'll put my information in the chat. And also just to give you some upcoming events that are taking place at NJBIA, we have on May 21st, we have State of the State of Manufacturing. This is going to take place from 8 to 2 p.m., and that's going to be at the New Jersey State House in Trenton. And then we have our Tech Forward New Jersey, empowering business through innovation. This is going to be basically AI. How is AI helping to shape New Jersey business landscape? And that's going to take place on June 3rd from 8 to 12:30 p.m. at the Pines Manor in Edison, New Jersey. So for more information, please feel free to reach out to me, Anthony Arena. I'll put my information in the chat. And you can also visit njbia.org for more information. Kelly, it's all yours. Thank you. You're muted.
You're muted, Kelly.
Sorry, guys. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. And before we get started, we'd also like to give a big shout out and thanks to all of our sponsors. So let's take a minute to acknowledge those who help and support all of this behind the scenes. So, oh.
Welcome to this month's New Jersey Business and Industry Association's Business Growth Roundtable. We created this show because we really want to equip you with what you need to succeed.
This event is ideal for business leaders who need to stay up to date on strategy, technology, and trends to grow their business.
So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NJBIA Business Growth Roundtable. I am Donna Miller, one of your co-hosts, and I am Chief Visionary Officer at C3 Works and founder of Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, where for over 30 years, we've been helping companies to accelerate their growth by providing support and advisory services around operations, biz dev, and finance. What we really do is we allow growing teams and business owners to work smarter by focusing on that which actually moves the needle. And our clients know that by bringing us in to build AI-infused systems that are efficient, connected, and executable by them or us, they're laying the foundation for a company that will run and grow without them involved in every little detail. So if you are interested in working smarter and growing faster, who isn't? Let's talk. And let me hand it over to my co-host, Rachel Durkin.
Thank you, Donna, and hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Durkin. I'm with Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing, branding, and sales enablement agency that specializes in working with clients with a complex sale. That means B2B, professional services, and nonprofit organizations. If you have a sales team and you want them to have more qualified leads and shorter sales cycles, we can help build a marketing to sales infrastructure that is going to decrease your cost of sale and make your sales team more effective, all while driving revenue up and costs down. So if you're looking for support in your in outsourced marketing or any of those areas, please contact me at Paradigm and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. And this event would not be what it is without our sponsors. So first, thank you to Nisavacia, who takes pride in delivering exceptional accounting services in New Jersey, built on a foundation of strong work ethic and a commitment to treating their clients like family. These are the traits they pass down from everyone on their team throughout their culture, and it's evident in everything they do. For more than 55 years, Nisavacia has made great partnerships with all of their clients, and that is why they were chosen the best place to work and the top 25 accounting firms in New Jersey. And Donna, let me throw it over to you for our next sponsor.
And speaking of partnerships, we love partnering with Summit Place Financial Advisors. They offer focused, individualized attention, serving a select group of highly successful people like you who have outgrown mass market institutions. Success often comes with complex investment, tax, and estate planning challenges. Summit Place offers experienced, personalized, and disciplined guidance to help you achieve your financial goals and simplify wealth opportunistically. They collaborate with trusted professionals to bring a holistic, expert approach to your financial journey. Of course, Summit Place is an SEC-registered firm. They do not sell products, earn commissions, or have quotas to meet. They work solely in your best interest with no hidden fees or agenda. Rachel, who else do we need to thank?
And last but not least, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, which is the state's leading health insurance provider, committed to improving the health and well-being of New Jersey residents through innovative, high-quality, and affordable coverage. Guided by a mission to advance health equity, this organization strengthens communities statewide by investing in programs and partnerships that support access, wellness, and long-term health outcomes. Donna, back to you.
Excellent. And as Rachel said at the top, we could not do this without our partners, so we're truly grateful for this collaboration. And of course, we are collaborating with NJBIA. So let me hand it back to NJBIA to give us some updates and tell us what's going on there. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, we already got the updates. And thank you all. So one last little piece of housekeeping before we get into the meat of it. Just some reminders. Number one, we are recording this and you will receive a link in a few days. So if you miss anything or there's anything you need to rewatch, you will have that in your inbox definitely by next week, probably by the end of the week. Remember that you are attending with other like-minded business professionals. So we do encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat box and to keep an eye out for any attendees that you might want to connect with. This is a virtual networking event as well as an educational event after all, so take advantage. We will have some time at the end for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section, not the chat box. Because we will have people interacting and introducing themselves or chatting, we don't want to miss any questions. And then finally, remember to join us next month for our next Business Growth Roundtable. It will be on June 9th. That's Tuesday, June 9th at 12 p.m. And it is Smarter Ways to Use Microsoft Copilot in 2026. We have partnered with the NJ AI Hub, and there will be a representative from Microsoft to give us some exclusive tips and tricks on how to best use Copilot. I'll be pasting a link in the chat box in a second, but first, before I do that, I do want to get to one of the most important aspects of this, and that is bringing my beloved and wonderful co-host, Michelle Hagan, up to the stage so that we can get started. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. And I definitely don't want to miss next month's Copilot. That one is definitely going to be one that you will want to join. So hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Michelle Hagan. I am CEO and business partner at C3 Works. I work with leadership teams to align strategy, execution, and financial clarity so growth is intentional and sustainable. So today, during this event, my focus will be on how financial visibility supports execution and helps leaders make confident decisions as they scale. And just one last reminder, just to what Kelly had mentioned before, if you do have any questions, please make sure you put them in the Q&A section. And welcome, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. We are super excited to be here today to talk to you about something that's near and dear to our hearts, which is from vision to results, how to plan and execute for sustainable growth. Sounds simple. Simple isn't often easy. And the truth is, most strategic plans fail because of execution, not because of the plan itself. So, Kelly, Michelle, and I are going to talk to you about 3 facets of this today. I am going to start us off, so let's get right into our presentation. So, here's what we're going to go over today. I'm going to talk about strategy and why plans fail. Kelly is going to talk to you about operational structure, turning plans into action, and Michelle is going to talk to you about the numbers, because if you're not measuring, what's the point of the whole thing? So we're going to go through this at probably a very fast pace. So A, you will get a recording, and B, we're always available after the show for questions, but we will have time for Q&A at the end as well. So let's dive in, and I'm just going to be mindful of our time because that's my job. All right. So strategy. Why plans fail? Lots of different reasons. 67% of well-formulated plans fail due to poor execution, not flawed strategic thinking. The problem is translating the vision into action. You know, we all get caught up in the, here's where we're going to go and here's where we want to be. And that's great, but that's not a strategy. And the other thing is that only 5% of employees understand their company's strategy. So it's one thing for you to create this great strategy in your head as the leader of your organization, but unless you translate it to your company and your team, they're not on the same page, and that's a huge misalignment. And companies lose nearly 40% of the strategy's potential value due to execution gaps with misalignment. And Kelly's going to talk to you more about that as well. So, and here's a sad fact. Leadership teams spend less than 1 hour monthly discussing strategy. Like, if that's not what we're all going for, how come we're not talking to it? So there are a lot of reasons that strategy fails. And what we want to do today is kind of tell you some of the ways that you can bridge those gaps and have your strategy make it from vision to strategy and execution. So, how do we identify those gaps? First of all, as I said before, we have to translate the strategy. We have to take the time to break it down into specific, actionable team initiatives with clear owners. And I'm going to show you a sample of my favorite strategic methodology in a moment. So A, we've got to translate it. And also, one of the things that I think is really important here is what's completely, patently clear to you may not be clear to your team. So make sure they understand it. I would go even further, and this kind of goes to aligning teams. Create visual tools showing how the different departments and the different peoples will work together. But the other thing that I personally think is really important, I like to get my team involved in the strategy creating process. To me, that creates something that's super important, which is called ding, 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 ownership, right? Everybody wants to own the strategy because then they are vested in it. So translate that strategy, align your teams, eliminate, explicitly identify what you'll stop doing to create capacity for the new strategic priorities. Because the reality is, we're all doing more than we really have time for. So when you drop this strategy on your team, it's very possible their first reaction is going to be, are you kidding me? You want me to do something else? So figure out a way. And again, maybe that's a co-creation. Maybe you say to your team, okay, I need you to spend 10% on this. Give me 3 ideas of how you'll cut some 10% out somewhere else. Again, I'm a big fan of getting the team involved. So figure out what you can eliminate so that they can focus on the strategy, or the execution of the strategy, which is probably the highest use of their time. And we talk about that a lot here at the Business Growth Roundtable. What is the highest use of your time? So translate, align, eliminate conflicts, make it visible, discuss it, embed it in your dashboards, maybe create some sort of logo for it or some sort of visual image so that it stays top of mind and you're making it visible. And Michelle will talk lots about this later, and we are huge on this. Track behavior. You manage what you measure. If you're not managing and measuring, it's not going to happen. That, I think, is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why strategy fails, is because we're not measuring. And when you do measure, now coming back to, you've translated it for your team, you've aligned, you've eliminated. Well, when you have this scorecard, people love a scorecard. They want to know that they're doing well. So I think that tracking behavior and creating that scorecard helps everyone feel like a win. And I know Kelly and Michelle will agree with me. We track our biz dev behavior, and man, there are months where nothing is happening. We're like doing the behavior and nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden you got this great pipeline. So measure those behaviors, measure the things that are the KPIs. Again, you'll hear more about that later on the execution of this strategy. And you want to create, this needs to be a systematic process. You want it to be in real time. You want to be sharing the wins. You want to be discussing it. Earlier we said one of the reasons that strategic plans fail is because the team doesn't know about it. This is, to me, another form of building culture. When you have a strategy and an execution plan, and it becomes everyone's conversation and everyone has a piece of ownership on it, that to me also contributes to culture. And we've talked a lot here on the Business Growth Roundtable about the value of culture. I think, culture creates a momentum that is virtually impossible to create in any other way. So create that everybody's in it culture when you are executing on strategy and asking people probably to up-level their skill set. We're all talking about AI today. We're all going to have to incorporate it. We're all going to have to use it. So get your team involved and try to avoid these execution gaps by staying mindful of them and having that communication. So those are some of the ways that you can prevent your strategy from just fizzling out. Anybody ever have that happen? Or you go hard for 6 weeks and then it just falls off the cliff? I'm totally guilty of that. Kelly's laughing. I know she is.
I'm muted, but yes.
But we get better as years go by. So let's talk about all the different ways and methodologies there are to create a strategy. Now, I have to tell you, in my 30 plus years of leading this company, I have read, I won't say I've read them all, but I've read many and I've studied many. And I firmly believe that the best way to create a strategy is with a system that you feel is most clear. And I'm going to share with you, I'm going to stop this share, and I'm going to share with you what I feel is the simplest, most executable strategic planning tool that I like to use. So let me share my screen again now that I have these two things up. Okay, so can you gals see those strategic plans up there? Okay, yes. Super simple.
Yes.
All right. And that you've probably heard me say this before, but bears repeating. One of my favorite books, The One Thing. As you could see, it's highlighted, it's dog. I use this thing. So this strategy that you're looking on my screen is the GPS from the One Thing strategic planning. What I love about the One Thing and this methodology, well, there's a lot of things I love about it. It goes to what is your one thing? What is the one thing that by doing so will make everything easier or unnecessary? Maybe it's I have to improve retention by 10%. Maybe it's I have to increase revenue. Maybe it's a number of different things. But by identifying your one thing, you put 3 priorities under it. Sorry. So you've got 3 priorities. Say, and here's a sample. So after this webinar, if you want these, just email me, Donna@C3Works, and I'll be happy to send them to you. These are not mine. These are the One Thing. I have swiped them, but I give them credit as well, so I think that makes it okay. I don't know. They come after me. I've been on their podcast. I think they'll be okay with it. Okay, so let's just say, hypothetically, you want to increase revenue by 10%. Well, your priorities are drive leads through thought leadership, create a speaking plan, relationship nurturing. This is all hypothetical. I made this up. But under those priorities are strategies, which is a tactic or a task. And you break it down very quantifiably. Again, so in the translation, you're being very specific. And then this is how you get the team involved. Who's going to do it? Maybe Kelly's going to do this. Maybe Michelle's going to do that. And then when is it due? So it is a simple but very effective strategic planning methodology. And the thing that I love the most about this is, first of all, to me, it's always about strategy, execution, and the third piece, well, there's 3 and 4, measuring and accountability. All of this, whoever owns it, this goes on their calendar in a time blocking methodology. So you've eliminated the gaps in the strategy by getting very clear on what you're doing. This means you're not doing other things. One of the things I love about the One Thing, their decision making, the way they help you to make decisions is it's either a hell yes or a no. No middle ground there, right? Is it on my GPS? Does it support my one thing that I'm trying to accomplish? If it does, it's a hell yes. If it doesn't, it's no. So this allows you to get very clear on what you're going to do. And the truth is, the other things I think happens why strategies fail is they're just too complicated, right? Simple is executable. Simple is repeatable. And that is how you scale a company. Now, what I also love about this particular strategic planning methodology is this will work at any level of your organization. This could be from your director of sales down to your sales administration person or your front desk person. Everyone can have a one thing and priorities and strategies that they will use to work towards the one thing. So I highly recommend this methodology. Let me stop that share. And again, simple is repeatable. So whatever strategy you use, just in my opinion, it has to be in writing. It has to get everyone involved. And again, if you can do that from the beginning, I believe it creates ownership. I think that's especially important when you are at a place at a challenging point. Maybe you're in a tough spot. Maybe you've really got to make some hard moves or you've got to do something. I think that discussing it with your key team members, they want to be part of the solution and they definitely do not want to be kept in the dark. So, the truth is the world is a little cray-cray at the moment, right? We're all figuring out how to use AI. And by the way, AI is a great strategic complement to planning your strategy. But I think that, getting everyone involved is really super duper important. So with that, let me do this and hold on. I'm just getting our screen set back up. Let me share my screen and we will have Kelly take the next segment on turning plans into action. That's where the magic happens.
Yes. So it is a 3-pronged system, and I'm glad that we're all here together and you're able to see it from the beginning. into, the middle of the actual structure building to the end of tracking and making sure your financials are supporting everything you have. And this is always what we do as a team. And it's something you should keep in mind for yourself, even if it's just you. Start planning as if you're going to be delegating more or giving off more and building that team up, because the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you start from the beginning. Okay. So up to this point, we talked about strategy. Donna went over a lot and why those plans fail and how to think about direction. I think that's a big part of it, is direction. But strategy alone isn't always what moves a business forward. It's the operational structure. That is what determines whether strategy ever turns into action. Because you can have ideas all day long, but if there's not a plan behind it to bolster it up, to get it going, it's not going to go anywhere. So, over the past 16 years working with Donna, this is really one of the biggest gaps that I've seen for most businesses. It's not that they're short on ideas. What really is the problem is they're short on a system that turns those ideas into consistent progress. Okay, consistence is the big word here, because that's really what's going to keep going. Because you could be really gung-ho for like Donna said, for 2 months, 3 months, and then once it's gone, you're kind of back at square one again, unfortunately. So what we're going to focus on, strategy answers where are we going, where do we want to go? But the operational structure, which is really important, that is going to actually, that's going to answer how is this actually going to get done? So, as we get into this, before we talk about the solutions, what we'll talk about first is honestly why that execution breaks. So even when the strategy is solid and you're really, really going for it, let's first think, what could go wrong? I don't know what that's maybe me, but first slide we have here is why execution breaks. And there's a couple different reasons of why this happens, right? So most business owners don't actually have a strategy problem. I mean, sometimes a lot of that, sometimes they do, but really the big one is an execution capacity problem, okay? And there's a few different reasons. And what I've seen a lot too, as Donna had mentioned before, is that execution usually doesn't fail in this big dramatic way of oh, woe is me. It's mostly a quiet failure where you might have put some work in, you have some to-do lists, but it just doesn't either get to the end or something trips you up or whatever it is. So here are the big ones that we've seen over, our tenure here doing this consistently over the past 30 years. Excuse me. I would say number one is an unclear workflow. So the tool that Donna shared is so helpful because it is very clear on what is the goal, what is the priority, what are the strategies, what are the tasks, who's responsible for it, when is it due? It really does map out every piece of it. And that's really what you need. It needs to be completely clear. I think communication clarity is one of the biggest selling points. That's really what's going to get you past that finish line, is making sure you're aware of everything that needs to be done and that your team is aware of everything that needs to be done from top to bottom. So that's what it is. With unclear workflows, the work starts, but it never quite finishes, or, they're unsure of what done actually means. That's a big one too. I've seen that a lot where it's here's a task and then someone does the work and they mark it complete, but it's not quite complete yet, probably because it wasn't mapped out properly. And then what happens? It gets forgotten about because it's out of sight, out of mind. So if there needs to be multiple steps for a task, it needs to be listed out that way. Next one, leaders as bottlenecks. This happens everywhere all the time. And a lot of that, there's different facets to that. A big one is, there's difficulty letting go of tasks, or because of this unclear workflow of who should be doing what, a lot of decisions continue to roll back up to either one person or two people. And it's usually not because they want control. When we're talking to business owners, they are so stressed out by the amount of control they have, but they don't know how to get rid of it. But a big problem with that a lot of the time is that the structure is pushing everything to them. So they really, the people working, they probably don't want to have to give it to them. The people, at the top, these bottlenecks don't want to be stuck there. But the way that the structure is set up, unfortunately, isn't flowing in a way that's allowing, decisions to be made or progress to be made, because it's all coming down to, well, you have to do this thing, or you're stuck here, or you need to make a decision. And we want to try to eliminate that as much as possible. And as Donna had mentioned, again, that a big part of that is keeping everybody on the same page from the beginning and making it, collaborative, as collaborative as possible, so you don't get stuck. Unless you have to have specific decision-making, powers of money or, approving certain things, you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So when we're working with clients, this is one of the big, things we look at is how can we get this done without having to bother you, without having to interrupt your day. And that's a huge one. So you want to try to get yourself out of there as much as possible as that bottleneck. If you feel like, oh, it's my fault, I'm sorry, I'm the problem, hi, like I'm the reason this thing isn't going, then that's something you got to work on. We got to change the workflow, change the structure of the operations so that this doesn't happen. And then finally, the big one we see again, and this is another reason why people do come to us and work with us, is that there is no one driving follow through. Okay. There's a lot of good conversations that can happen in meetings. You can really, really be so psyched for this new initiative or this new plan. But as soon as you leave the room, you know what happens. People forget. Or they just like, oh yeah, who needed to do that thing? Oh yeah, someone else is going to handle it. If you didn't document it, if you don't have that plan and that structure there, you're going to forget. It's not going to work. It's one of those things that it's kind of sad because everyone was really into it. Everyone was happy. And then it's like, oh, who was following up? I don't know. There's no accountability. I don't know. It's gone. And then you got to start again all the way from the beginning. And it's really, yeah. So these are the big execution breakers that we've seen, is that there's unclear workflows going into it, that leaders are sort of situated as these bottlenecks, unfortunately, which nobody wants, but somehow happens all the time. So you got to be aware of it. I think that's the first step, is being cognizant that this is going to happen and trying to avoid it. And then finally, no one is designated for follow-up, and that specific follow-up. So, progress starts depending on whether, what your structures are for the week. And we always want to talk about software, and we do talk about a lot of great programs, a lot of great softwares we have, but that's not the only thing that matters, right? Tools don't always fix execution. It's structure that does. Tools only support the structure. So the next thing we'll talk about real quick is, what does it actually look like when the structure is working, right? It simply shows up how strategy shows up in the week. And that's what these tools are important for. A lot of time people will come to us and they say, oh, I think I need to have this and that and this and that. And it's, yeah, a lot of the time you do, but if you don't build it properly from the beginning, it's just going to add more problems to your day, fortunately. So what you really need to have is that clear strategy, the clear priorities, which are translated into the weekly execution, so that the progress is no longer relying on memory or motivation, because it's going to fade at some point, or reminders. So you want it to be, a weekly, it's almost like second nature. So here's what we have. We have our strategy, right? That's the weekly execution. And then it goes into the visible progress. So strategy sets the direction. Weekly execution defines what gets worked on this week. And then visible progress lets everyone see what's moving and what's stuck. And this is where the tools are helpful. But again, you need to know this stuff before you start working on the tools, because the tools are working for you. You're not working for the tools, right? So for task and project management tools, this is where it's similar to what Donna has. That can be, what that was an Excel sheet, but that can be translated into what we use, Asana, and we have a team-wide account. Everyone's able to see. We have projects, we have tasks, we have deadlines, we have notes, we can upload files, and it's visible to everyone. You get reminders. This is what the collaborative communication needs to be. Everyone needs to be on the same page all the time. So task and project tools are really immensely helpful once you have that strategy and you have that progress going. So we use Asana. There's other things like Trello. There's a lot of different ones. Microsoft, Office 365 has its own. There's any number of them, and they're all very similar in terms of how you can set things up. So if you ever need help or you ever want a demo on how you can sort of lay out these projects, we're always happy to help with that. So shared calendar, shared visibility in general, again, that's something you can use with Asana, but if you have a good CRM system as well, which we are always advocating for, we use Zoho. There's Office 365. Again, a lot of these programs have them built in. If you don't use them yet, we can always help you get them set up, get them going so that you can see that progress in a snapshot. And you can track what's going on. There's, like I said, I think having as much information on what you need for that project is invaluable because you're seeing what someone worked on. You see their comments, you see where they might have gotten tripped up. And there's a running tally of it. Like you are able to see historically what might have happened or worked or didn't work last time. Where did we get stuck? Where did the tasks fall off? And then it'd say, okay, when we get to this point, let's make sure we, stay on top of it. And then the simple tracking systems is really, you can use it with anything, even as simple, like I said, as Donna's Excel sheet. It's not what we would recommend, but it's also a start, and the start is better than no start. So as long as you're able to, see your progress, share the progress, the goal isn't always complex systems. The goal is repeatable workflows and shared visibility, because that's really the best thing that's going to work. And, a huge key is accountability. And for us, I know for us as a team, it's shared accountability. If nothing is ever getting carried forward and, as a team for us, we will share weekly. Here's where I am, here's what I've done. And then for you, you're like, oh yeah, now I've got to share, and you get to see where everyone else is. And it's helpful. It's so, especially and I know a majority of people work remotely. This is such a great way to also connect your team. And it does help in that shared camaraderie. It helps everyone's looking to, do their best and get those tasks forward. So I think really the last thing we want to talk about is that even with the structure, even with the tools and strategy, the execution still totally depends on people in a lot of ways. AI can help a lot, but with your teams, that human innovation, that team communication, that is still super important, and you can't ever sidestep it or overlook it. Executive and operational support really is that execution engine of the business. Okay, so the role isn't always about doing the work, it's about making sure the work moves. Okay, and this is a very simplified way of looking at it, but it's the goal, task, owner, deadline, follow-up, right? So every initiative needs clarity on these 5 very simple things. What is the goal? Where is the task? Which is, what you want to be clear on from the beginning, what you need to remain clear on as you build that structure. And you're going to see how much farther you go and how many more ideas come out of it from your team when everyone's on the page. It's great to be able to work together and move together because, 2 heads are better than 1, as they always say. So this is a lot of where we help and what we, are able to support, and where we're seeing how to enrich other companies too, by making sure you focus on this role, because it is what moves it forward. It keeps the work moving between meetings, it tracks those decisions, it documents them, nothing stalls, and those tools are what supports that. So this is where leaders consistently, and we see this all the time, this is where leaders consistently reclaim 10 plus hours a week of their time, where you can focus on other things. Because your goal, as the leader, strategy should be your main job. You want to make sure you know where we're going next, seeing behind those corners. and then the team is executing on that. So you should have as much time as possible to be working on that. And this is really where that comes in. And, we're able to help reclaim those hours, not because there's less work, but because execution no longer depends on you. And we're trying to get around those bottlenecks, right? So again, there's a million tools that we use. We have really tried and true ones that we love. Again, like communication, Microsoft Teams is a big one. So, I think collaboration in that communication aspect is one of the most important things, especially if you are a hybrid or a remote team. You want to be able to see and get an update in real time. You want to be able to have a dashboard of where are we, what's behind, et cetera. But really, I would say the simple systems are the best. So simple systems used consistently by someone who follows through beat complex systems every time. So, you can always set up a bit, there's automation you can do, but with these kinds of things, I think you want to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible. So, with leaders step out of that execution friction, the strategy gets traction, and that's when growth really happens. And,
Awesome.
in our three-pronged approach here, I think that's the big thing to remember is you want to try to step out of that execution friction and just let the team, take it to over the finish line.
Thank you, Kelly. Awesome. And I have to say, I give you mad props for listing leaders as a bottleneck because I know that we are. We don't mean to be, but we are. So
No, they hate it. That's
an entire webinar for another day. And then we might need a therapist in there as well. But I get it. So let's bring Michelle up to talk about the financial alignment and what the numbers mean and why the numbers are so important.
Okay, we saved the best for last. Not me, money and finance. Okay, so we've talked about strategy, we've talked about operational structure, and this is where we connect those ideas to real life inside the business. So financial alignment and accountability are what determines whether execution actually sticks once the planning process is over. So at C3, we see this all the time. Businesses, they don't struggle because leaders don't care, right? They don't struggle because leaders aren't smart or capable. Hopefully not. Execution breaks when the financial side of the business was never fully aligned to support the work. And so here's a line I want you to remember as we're going through this today. You can't execute what you can't measure or afford. I'm going to repeat that. You can't execute what you can't measure or afford. So revenue can be coming in, payroll can be covered from the outside, things look fine, right? But inside the leadership team, decisions start to feel heavier, growth starts to feel risky. Instead of energizing, you hesitate more, you second guess more. Is that sounding familiar? I'm sure it's happened a couple of times to all of us. That tension is usually the first sign that financial alignment is missing. Because even the best strategy and even the cleanest workflows will stall if the business isn't financially set up to support them. So let's take just a quick mental snapshot of your business. So if you think about your business, right? How many initiatives are actively running today that don't have a clear budget, a forecasted impact, or a clear financial ownership? Give you a second to think about that. And if you're not sure, that uncertainty itself, that's the issue. So let's discuss some common financial execution gaps to help. There are 3 financial execution gaps that shows up again and again in small and mid-sized businesses. The first is growth initiatives without budgets. Someone approves a hire, a software tool, a new service, or a system change. Everyone agrees it's a great idea, they're excited, but nobody actually slows down enough to ask, what does this cost monthly? How long should it take to pay back? And what are we not funding if we fund this? Again, I'm sure this probably sounds very familiar. So I want to be clear, this isn't reckless leadership. This is what happens when good ideas, great ideas pile on faster than financial prioritization. We regularly work with profitable businesses that feel stressed about cash. And when we map it out together, we sit, we think about it, we dive deep. It's rarely just one bad decision. It's several good decisions running at the same time without clear financial guardrails. Again, I'm sure this is kind of, sounding familiar to all of us. So just recently, I actually worked with a business that felt constantly tight on cash despite solid profits. And when we actually stepped back, we took that deep dive, they had 6 growth initiatives running simultaneously. 6. That's a lot, especially for a small business. None of them were outrageous. None of them were poorly intended, but none of them were clearly funded. So they weren't overspending, they were under planning. So the second gap is KPIs. And Donna and Kelly both mentioned this. So the gap is if KPIs that aren't tied to strategy. That's an issue. Most leadership teams track numbers because, well, that's what we've always done, right? You check your revenue, your margins, your cash balance. Those matter, but they don't tell you whether the strategy is actually working. So if efficiency is part of the strategy, but utilization or cost to deliver isn't being tracked, finance will always lag behind execution. Leadership stays busy, but clarity stays elusive. The third gap is cash flow surprises. I don't know about you. I love surprises, but not if it's a cash issue, either personal or in the business. Cash problems always never appear overnight. They're the delayed result of decisions made months earlier, often during periods of urgency or optimism without forecast visibility. So financial alignment doesn't eliminate risks. It replaces surprise without foresight. And that's the important distinction. So let's talk about translating strategy into financial clarity, which is ultimately the goal. This is where strategy, operations, and finance finally come together. Strategy can't live in a vacuum. It has to translate into initiatives, and those initiatives must show up in the numbers. And you probably have heard Donna say this a million times, but you have to know your numbers, right? So when Donna talked earlier about narrowing priorities, finance's role is not to slow the momentum. Finance exists to make growth executable. So at C3, we believe finance should give leadership confidence, not friction. Financial alignment starts by asking 3 very grounding questions. So this is your financial alignment. Can we afford this right now? What does success look like financially? And what has to change elsewhere in the business if we commit to this? And then every strategic initiative, no matter how exciting it is, should be able to answer 5 basic questions. What does it cost monthly? Is that cost fixed or variable? When should results realistically show up? What metrics tells us it's working? And what happens if it doesn't? So this does not require complex financial models or fancy dashboards, although we love our dashboards. It requires clarity and shared understanding. And this is where many leaders silently struggle. Most business owners are not short on data, probably overwhelmed by data, actually. They're actually short on decision clarity. They're making dozens of financial decisions every week without a clear sense of which ones actually move the business forward. And that's super important, knowing which ones are moving your business forward. So here's a simple exercise that we often recommend to our clients. And you can think about this now, but maybe this could kind of be your homework after the event. So if you're thinking about your business, list every active initiative in the business that you have currently and ask, if we paused just one of these for 90 days, which one would actually relieve pressure instead of creating it? And that answer will tell you everything about alignment. Financial alignment gives leadership permission to decide with confidence and not fear. And that's super important as leaders. All right, so simple financial discipline for execution. This is where we simplify, not complicate. And I'm going to probably date myself here, but the old KISS statement, keep it simple, and we'll say sweetheart. So we want to keep it simple. And I think that's where leaders tend to overcomplicate. And we've talked about that. Kelly and Donna talked about that earlier. So we want to keep it simple. Execution discipline does not come from more metrics. It comes from the right metrics. This is where leading and lagging indicators matter. All right. So leading indicators are metrics that help you predict and influence outcomes. They answer the questions, are we doing the right activity to get the results? So these are things like utilization, capacity strain, cost to execute, pipeline quality. These give leadership time to adjust before the problems actually show up in the financials. And then lagging indicators tell you what already happened. Those would be like your revenue, your margins, your profit, your cash balance. They matter, but they don't help you steer. They only tell you where you ended up. So to simplify it, the KISS method, you can think of it this way. Leading indicators are the cause, lagging indicators are the effect. So strong financial oversight doesn't require daily dashboards. Again, we love our dashboards, but we're trying to keep it simple and not complicated. So a solid monthly leadership review, when you're sitting down with your leadership team reviewing, you should answer 3 simple questions. 1, are we financially stable right now? 2, are our priorities being funded the way we intended? And 3, can we sustain this pace? Those are 3 very important questions that you should be answering every month during your review and sit down with your leadership team. This is the mind shift. So finance isn't just about reporting on the past. Finance exists to help leadership decide what happens next. So you green light growth when costs are clear, timing is realistic, and indicators support it. You pause when execution is strained or cash tightens without explanation. I'm going to repeat that again. So you green light growth when costs are clear, timing is realistic, and indicators support it. You pause when execution is strained or cash tightens without explanation. And pausing isn't failure. And remember at the beginning when I said the statement I wanted you to remember, you can't execute what you can't measure or afford. Pausing is leadership. So I'm going to leave you with one question as we move into discussion. Do you know which initiative in your business is producing the most return on investment right now? Because if that answer isn't immediate and clear, that's not a failure. That's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to take what we discussed today and answer some of those questions, looking at your initiatives, looking, are these, which ones can I pause that would create less stress? Because when strategy, execution, and financial visibility are aligned, growth becomes sustainable, not stressful. And that's where strong leadership lives.
Let me unmute. Awesome sauce. All right. That was really good. So before we go to Q&A, which, we will go to Q&A in just a moment, I'm going to put you each on the spot and I'll go first to take some of the heat off. So you've all heard me say this a gazillion times. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So what I'm going to ask both of you to share is if you were to have our audience do 1 to 2 things today to set them on the path of executable strategy that produces results, what would it be? For me, I'm going to start off and I'm going to say, I believe what you need to do is create a space, create fertile soil for co-creating strategy that becomes executable. So what does that mean? I want to encourage you to decide who on your team should be part of this discussion. Could be internal, could be your marketing firm, could be your accountant. So, as you are growing your organization, you may have all your resources in-house or they may be a combination. So my one thing I'd like to see you do is create a recurring meeting for discussing, measuring, and revisiting strategy. That's me. Kelly, what would you have our audience do?
I would say my first recommendation is if you don't have that strategy time, that dedicated time to really sit down and just think about strategy for your business, this is our first step always when we work with clients. If they don't do this already, is take a day and document what you're doing. Document what you're working on. Literally write it down. Just as you're working, I'm checking an email, or I'm scheduling my own appointments, or I'm doing an e-letter, I'm doing this. And then at the end of the day, look at it and really ask yourself how much of that you should be doing, because that time is eating into your strategy time, and that's a problem. And I think that's
consider dropping that document into AI and saying, here's my role, here's the greatest use of my time. What should I eliminate from my, you can use AI to analyze this information very quickly and very effectively. Michelle?
I would say the homework that I gave, taking a look at all of your initiatives that you have currently going on, and you'd probably be surprised if you actually list them, how many you have going on at one time that you don't realize, right? It's like, if it's not written down, sometimes you forget that they're, actually in the background, happening. So I would list all of your active initiatives and then take a look at them. And if you paused one of those, again, for 90 days, would it relieve pressure instead of creating it? Because I think that's super important.
Awesome. So let's go to Q&A.
All right. And we're back again. So thank you all. That was awesome. We do have time, I think, for one question because we're coming right to the end. So let me read it real quick and try to get a good answer to you. So Vince Matriciano has asked a question on tracking/changing behavior. So a hypothetical situation is a research and development company has historically performed development internally. Given the current climate, they now need to partner much more with outside companies. And this will require a big culture change, which is overcoming the not invented here syndrome. So how do we convince leadership to drive that change and make sure they do it correctly, resulting in the culture change of the employees? Michelle, would you like to take that one?
Sure. Okay. So I think culture change doesn't start with convincing employees, right? So I think it starts with leadership changing what they reward, fund, and model. So basically, to overcome like a not invented here mindset, leaders should have to clearly explain, why are they partnering now? Why is that critical? What support are they going to provide? And then start building solutions. So people will follow what leadership prioritizes, measures, and role models. So I guess when leaders consistently choose collaboration and remove the penalties for it, then the cultural shifts.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think, again, going back to what we talked about is just having very clear communication and being very upfront with how this sort of a collaboration is going to happen without impeding on what's already built under your company.
Right.
I think as long as you have that really strong culture, which is your job and priority, if it's your business, you should be able to link up with other and partner and be able to work outside the company without it ruining what you've already built internally. And a lot of that is, again, communication in that. So,
and then the planning process, Kelly. I think the planning process is so important, and again, it starts with the leadership and having those systems in place, and sharing those. And like Donna had said, getting the team involved from the beginning with the strategy. So it's not like this huge surprise. They are having input in it as well.
Yeah, there is a different reaction I've seen when there's more ownership for the employees as well, and they're able to contribute and sort of steer where the company will go. And I think that makes a huge difference, especially when you're doing bigger initiatives that involve, sort of these big changes that might be uncomfortable. But yeah, so I think that's what we got right now. I know we had some questions with the registration. So if there's any other additional questions, we're very happy to answer via email, reach out to us. We're always happy to continue the conversation afterward. So please feel free if you had anything that you saw or were interested in learning more about, we're always happy to help. So again, thank you all so much for coming to the event today. And we hope to see you all next month on June 9th at 12 for Copilot. So Copilot walkthrough and tips and tricks. So it should be a great one, a really informative one. So we hope to see you all there, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.